to this program on Saturday evening. Gita Life series, and it's yet another scintillating evening of Krishna Katha to hear and understand the message of Krishna. Today's topic is the Mount Everest of Yoga. Long time back, when I was a small boy, in my town there was a yoga master who had come, and there was a 14-day workshop. So I was probably in first standard or second standard, first grade, second grade, and my father took all of us to the workshop on everyday basis. And first day, second day, they taught us Padmasana and various other asanas. So I thought that person who can do Padmasana perfectly, I was second grade, it was a little difficult, but then I was able to do it. But then there were some other asanas which are difficult. So I thought, oh, somebody who can do this Mayurasana must be the most perfect yogi, because nobody was in the hall was able to do that. And then like this, there were more and more difficult asanas that were taught. And then on the 13th day and 14th day, he started teaching some meditation. And everybody would be lying down, and the yogi would be saying several deep things, which I could not understand any of that, of course. But I thought that, oh, somebody who can meditate like this, clearing the mind and just focusing on one thing, must be the greatest among all the yogis. But several years later, I had the opportunity to read Bhagavad Gita. And I discovered something about who and what is the actual summit of all yogic processes. If the entire system of yogas were considered to be mountain ranges or hills, which yogic process is the Mount Everest among the yogic processes? And that is described in the verse that we're going to discuss today. So we start first with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 6, titled Sankhya Yoga, text 47. Yoginam api sarvesham Yoginam api sarvesham Madgatena Antah Atmana Madgatherantaratmana Shraddhavan Bhajate Yuha Mam Shraddhavan Bhajate Yo Mam Saha Me Yuktatamaha Mataha Same Yuktatamo Mataha Yoginam api sarvesham Madgaterantaratmana Shraddhavan Bhajate Yo Mam Same Yuktatamo Mataha Yoginam api sarvesham Madgaterantaratmana Shraddhavan Bhajate Yo Mam Same Yuktatamo Mataha Yoginamapi sarvesham Madgaterantaratmanam Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam Same yuktatamo mataha. Yoginamapi sarvesham
Madgatenantaratmana
Madgaterantaratmana
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Same yukta tamo mataha
Same yuktatamo mataha.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां
Yoginamapi sarvesham
मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना
Madgaterantaratmana
श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
समे युक्ततमो मतः
Same yuktatamo mataha.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां
Yoginamapi sarvesham
मद्गते अन्तरात्मना
Madgaterantaratmana
श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
सामे युक्तात्मतो मतः
Same yuktatamo mataha.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां
Yoginam api sarvesham
मद्गतेरन्तरात्मना
Madgaterantaratmana
श्रद्धवान् भजते यो मां
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
समे युक्ततमो मतः
Same yuktatamo mataha.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां
Yoginamapi sarvesham
मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना
Madgaterantaratmana
श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
समे युक्तातमो मतः
Tame yuktatamo mataha.
योगिनाम् अपि सर्वेषां
Yoginamapi sarvesham
मद्गतेनन्तरात् आत्मनां
Madgaterantaratmana
श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
समे युक्तमो मतः
Same yuktatamo mataha. Yoginamapi sarvesham Madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam Same yuktatamo mataha.
योगिनामपि सर्वेषां
Yoginamapi sarvesham
मद्गतेन अन्तरात्मनः
Madgatenantaratmana
श्रद्धावान् भजते य मां
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
सह मे युक्तमा मतः
Same yuktatamo mataha. Online? Yoginam api sarvesham Madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam Same yuktatamo mataha. Yoginam, of all yogis, api, also, sarvesham,
Sarvesham
of all types of,
all types of
all types of, madgatena,
Madgatena
abiding in me,
abiding in me
antaha atmana,
Antaratmana
always thinking of me
always thinking of me
within,
within
Shraddhavan,
Shraddhavan
in full faith,
in full faith
bhajate,
Bhajate
renders
renders
transcendental loving service.
transcendental loving service.
Yaha,
Yeah,
one who,
one who
mam,
Mam
me, me,
me,
the Supreme Lord.
the Supreme Lord,
Saha,
Saha,
he,
he,
me,
me,
mine.
mine,
Yukta tamaha,
Yukta Tamaha,
the greatest yogi.
the greatest yogi,
Mataha
Mataha,
is considered.
is considered.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. And of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Translation with repetition. And of all yogis,
And of all yogis,
he
he
who always abides in me
who always abides in me
with great faith,
with great faith,
worshipping me
worshipping me
in transcendental loving service,
in transcendental loving service,
is most intimately united with me
is most intimately united with me
in yoga
in yoga,
and is the highest of all.
and is the highest of all.
This is a long purport, so please try to pay attention. The word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the verb bhaj, which is used when there is a need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaja. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or a demigod and may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do this, he falls down. The Bhagavatam confirms this as follows. Ya esham purusham sakshad atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajanti avajananti sthanat bhrashta patanti adaha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. In this verse also, the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to the demigods or to any other common living entity. The word avajananti, used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, is also found in the Bhagavad Gita, avajananti mamudha. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. So there is some more purport remaining. It's a new section, so please try to pay attention. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga, without fruitive results, is the beginning of this path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the supersoul by the different physical processes and the mind is on him, it is called ashtanga yoga. And when one surpasses the ashtanga yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, it is called bhakti yoga, the culmination. Factually, bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal, but to analyze bhakti yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name: karma yogi, jnana yogi, or dhyana yogi, raja yogi, hatha yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of bhakti yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all the other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga. Just as when we speak of Himalayan, we refer to the world's highest mountains, of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of Bhakti Yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shyamasundara, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels and whose body is flower garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called Brahma Jyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Narasimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yashoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is a perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. The stage of the highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by Bhakti Yoga, as is confirmed in all Vedic literature. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasyaite kathita hi arthaha prakashante mahatmanah. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Bhaktir asya bhajanam tadi ahamutropadi nairasyenam mushmin manaha kalpanam etad eva naishkarmyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of Naishkarmya. These are some of the means for performance of Bhakti or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhakti Vedanta purport to chapter 6 in the matter of Sankhya Yoga. Om Jnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this is the last verse in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It is the climax of this chapter and also the climax of the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which come under the name of Karma Yoga, under the category of Karma Yoga. And it's a very, very important verse in the entire Bhagavad Gita, an eye-opening verse, and very detailed purport. And we have only 30 minutes to understand what this means in our life. So let us get into this. Let us first just take a very quick look at the verse itself, very straightforward verse, but packed with very insightful knowledge. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatheran nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. So in this, the most important part, that is the objective, what is being trying to describe, yukta tamaha. Yukta tamaha here is talking about the greatest yogi. So there is a description of the greatest yogi. Yukta Tamo Mataha is considered, greatest yogi is considered. So who is this greatest yogi? The greatest yogi is amongst all the yogis. Yoginam api sarvesham is the greatest yogi. Not that he's the greatest yogi of Shrewsbury or Massachusetts or a small section of the world, but amongst all the yogis in all the planets and all the universes, all types of yogis, there is a specific type of yogi that is considered to be the greatest yogi. And who is that? There are three qualifications that have been given. Madgater antaratmana, and that is translated as he who abides in me. Madgater antaratmana, always thinking of me. Madgatena, abiding in me. Anta atmana, always thinking of me within. So these are two qualifications. Madgatena, that is abiding in me. Anta atmana, always thinking of me within. And then there are two more. Shraddhavan, with full faith. And what does he do with Shraddhavan, with full faith? Bhajate yomam, renders transcendental loving service. So these four qualifications, Madgatena, Antaratmana, Shraddhavan, and Bhajate yomam, one who renders transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Lord. These four qualifications, if somebody were to meet these four qualifications, then such a person is considered to be the highest of all the yogis. Among all the yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So, a wonderful translation where there is actual meaning of yoga has been described in this translation. Most intimately united with me in yoga. Because the word yoga itself means union. The word yoga means to achieve union with the Supreme Lord. And there can be different types of unions. And there can be unions with different levels of intensity. And so who is the person who has got the maximum intensity of this unison? Such a person, the one who has got the maximum intensity of the unison, is the highest yogi, and he is qualified by four qualities. That is, one who is abiding in Krishna always, one who is always thinking of Krishna within himself, one who is fully faithful, Shraddhavan, and one who renders transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Lord. So this is the statement of Krishna. So this verse completely makes it very, very crystal clear as to which processes of yoga which have been described till now, amongst them which is the highest process. And that is what Srila Prabhupada is describing in the purport, how Bhakti Yoga, or rendering transcendental devotional service, bhajate, with full faith, Shraddha, and always thinking of Krishna, always abiding in Krishna, how this process is what is known as Bhakti Yoga, and how this process is so distinct, so wonderful, and what are the qualities, what are the ways in which one can achieve this, what are the qualities of an ideal yogi. So these are the elements that have been talked about in the purport. The first part that Srila Prabhupada speaks about in the purport is a distinction between the word worship versus bhajate, or rendering transcendental devotional service. So let's take a closer look at this section. So Prabhupada is bringing about some differences. You will see that by some authors, when they are translating a commentary or writing commentary on Bhagavad Gita, they would simply translate the word bhajana or bhajate yomam simply as worship. But there is a fundamental difference in the English word, because English language, one has to be very, very careful in translating the words from Sanskrit, because the words in Sanskrit, they have nuances in their meaning, depending upon the context. And specifically the word bhajate yomam, when it is being described by a person who is not a devotee of the Lord, by the person who does not have the knowledge about what has been spoken by Krishna, personally being handed down by Krishna from disciplic succession, is not able to distinguish, is not able to translate the word accurately. So Srila Prabhupada is cautioning his students, the reader, of this minute difference. So let us see what the difference is. Prabhupada says that worship, the word worship, can mean or is generally used to mean adore or to show some respect and honor to somebody who is worthy of respect within the human society or within the higher species like demigods, devatas. And there are several levels of devatas. There are because there are heavenly planets of different levels and different lokas, and in that there are different kinds of devatas who are there, and certainly there are different levels of devatas who are certainly worthy of respect of different levels as well. And the word worship or adore, this applies to such individuals. But the word bhaja or bhajate, that does not apply to such mundane persons, such ordinary living entities, or even exalted living entities, even though they may be worthy of respect in our material world. Prabhupada says that the word bhaja only applies to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it means worshipping the Supreme Lord in transcendental loving service. We saw how in the purport it said that the word bhaja is applied when there is a need of service. So primarily the word bhajate or bhaja means rendering service. That is the primary meaning. But of course it is service rendered with love, and this activity is a transcendental activity. It is not mundane love. It is a spiritual activity. And therefore bhaja means worshipping the Supreme Lord in transcendental loving service, and it only applies to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now worship is something that you may choose not to do. Let us say that somebody comes in here. Let us say there is a mayor of this town, a mayor of Boston, or maybe the governor of Massachusetts. He comes in. Of course, we would all offer our full respects. But it is possible that if somebody is in opposition political party, they may instead stage a protest. Go back, governor, go back. Or whatever, take the latest political hot button of the Supreme Court ruling on the abortions, banning the abortions and overturning Roe versus Wade. So somebody who is an activist, a pro-choice activist, may hold placards and not show any respect to such a person who is ordinarily deserving of respect. And what would general people say about such protesters? Oh, he's so discourteous. Oh, he's a troublemaker. He can say those things silently on WhatsApp and Facebook, but he's making trouble, he's burning buses, or he's destroying public property. So one may be called discourteous, or he may be given some, but then of course in some other setting, the same people will be glorified, that he is a revolutionary leader, like that. Correct? So it is not a fully, even if you are discourteous to somebody in the material world, it is not 100% black and white that you are completely condemned by all of humanity. It is not like that. Based on the context, sometimes it may be considered discourteous, and sometimes it may be considered, oh, he's, he knows what he's doing. He does not blindly just, offer respect to everybody. He has got a backbone. He is proud. He is a self-respecting person. Like this also people will say. But when it comes to bhajana kriya, when it comes to bhajana, Prabhupada says that if you avoid the service of the Supreme Lord, you are thoroughly condemned, completely condemned. The reason for this is, every living entity, there is a purpose of existence of a living entity. The living entity is considered to be the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Mam evamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashashthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. If you have let us say a screw in a machinery, if that screw falls out of place, then does that screw have any value? For that machinery, it does not have any value. So every part of a machinery, every gear, every screw, every shaft, every cam, whatever it is, all those mechanical engineers may know all these terms. So whatever be the small part, that has to serve the entire machinery. Then that part has a value. It has got some purpose. Similarly, all the living entities, all of us, we have a purpose. Being part and parcel of the whole, our purpose is to serve the whole. And if we deviate from that purpose, if we deviate from the primary designed activity, the very specific purpose for which we were intended, if we move away from that, if we don't undertake that activity, then we have no purpose at all. There's no purpose of our existence. So such a person is completely condemned. But the interesting thing is, unlike a machine or a screw that is put there and it has no choice, the living entity has a choice. We have a choice to render loving service or not render loving devotional service. There is no meaning to love in absence of free will. If we don't have a free will to say, I don't want to love Krishna, if you don't have that free will, then does love have any meaning? Can love be forced? Love cannot be forced. And therefore, all of us have this minute independence, a free will of deciding to love Krishna or not love Krishna. But if somebody misuses that free will to not love Krishna, then such a person is completely condemned. This is what Prabhupada is saying. If a person, further in the purport, it is said, there is a quotation, a very nice quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. Ya esham purusham sakshat atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajanti avajananti sthanat bhrashta patanti adaha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, they certainly fall down from his constitutional position. We will see a little bit more about this later. But in a line, in a short summary, what this means is, every person has a constitutional position. Even in the material world, they are performing some activity. You are a brahmachari, undertaking studies, or you may be a grahastha, a householder, raising a family in a Krishna conscious way, or you may be a retired person, or you may be a renounced person, sannyasi. Whatever be one's position in the society, if a person neglects to render service to the Supreme Lord, then that position that he has is no longer there. He falls down. Sthanad bhrashta patanti adaha. So he is fallen from his position, which is the rightful position that a person should have in order to make a progress towards self-realization. That position goes away. So whatever other processes one may undertake for the purposes of purushartha, dharma, artha, kama, whatever you may take, you may be following karma kanda section, whatever it is that you may be doing, believing that this process is going to take me towards self-realization. This process is really what I should aim for an improvement in my consciousness. With whatever noblest of noble goals, if one undertakes a process. But if one fails to render transcendental loving service to the Lord, to the primeval Lord, then that process cannot last. Then that process, you fall down from that process. It's not possible to be stable in that process. But there is no such thing with mundane worship. If the mayor of Boston were to come and if I fail to stand up, will I get arrested? I won't get arrested. I will continue with my life. Somebody may point a finger saying, oh, look at this discourteous person, and they will just walk away. There's no big repercussion to that, right? But bhajate, loving transcendental service to the Supreme Lord, is not like that. It is the most essential. And if that is not done, one will fall down. That's a fundamental difference. And the activity of mundane worship, the worshipping or respecting or adoring somebody in the material world, that's a material activity. It's a mundane adoration. And such an activity is undertaken, persons who undertake such adoration or a cheap adoration of others, even if it may be of devatas, that is done without any attitude of service to the Supreme Lord. Because in this adoration, when you are adoring somebody or worshipping some mundane person, there is an expectation of a social etiquette. It is done for a social etiquette, or it is done for an exchange of some benefit. Oh, if the select man of Shrewsbury were to come here, if I get up and receive him nicely, maybe he will be favorable towards some permits that I need to pull for my home or something like that. Or maybe I will get admission into some school, I don't know, whatever it may be. Or maybe I will get admitted to the group of select men. Maybe he'll introduce me to a lot of other people. So like this, there are implied, deep-rooted desires that a person has, because of which we observe the social etiquettes, and out of a social custom, we offer respect and adoration to ordinary people. And we think that even if it is the devatas, and we are offering those respects and worship to the devatas, of course it is with the expectation of some material benefit, But we mistakenly think that this is the highest process. But Bhagavad Gita is saying that it is not. It is not. And Srila Prabhupada is clarifying that the activity of bhajate is a transcendental activity, completely devoid of any expectation of material benefit, whereas the word worship, if you use, it is not like that. And therefore Prabhupada is cautioning the reader from reading other kinds of commentaries where the author does not understand this fundamental difference between the use of the word worship versus bhajan or transcendental loving service. Let us look at this one part, one important point that was been, or a quotation that Prabhupada has given. Na bhajanti avajananti sthanad bhrashta patanti adaha. So this sthana, or the position of a person, has also been referred to in the prayers of Lord Brahma to Krishna. And let us look at this wonderful prayer and we'll see how that is related to this. The verse goes like this. It is in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in prayers of Lord Brahma to Krishna. Jnane prayasam udapasya namantayeva jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartham sthane sthita shruti gatam tanuvan manobhir ye prayaso ajita jitopyasyat traistrilokyam. So here there is a definition of how loving, transcendental loving service is actually rendered by people and what the result of that is. Jnane prayasam udapasya namantayena. Jnane prayasam, transcendental loving service, is completely bereft of any tinge of material knowledge. So any attempt of acquiring speculative knowledge, that is by ascending process of knowledge, by thinking that if I speculate sufficiently long, for a long time, if I philosophically think about who I am and my surroundings and look at myself, because I can see that there was a time when I was not born, and then I'm growing older, and there is a time when I will die. Similarly, my parents were also non-existent at one point, and they also died at one point, or they will die in future. And around me, I see everybody dying. Therefore, and I can also see that some people in some accidents or something, they lose their hand, some people lose their legs, some people lose some ear or a nose or lips or legs. So none of these body parts are me. And like this, speculating, then who am I? What is my nature? This is called the process of speculative understanding. So without reference to any scriptures, without taking the knowledge from a descending process from a Vaishnava Acharya, when we try to philosophize, when we try to speculate who am I, what is this universe around me, like the modern scientists do. Of course, they have not come to the point of understanding who I am, but, or rather they have done that inquiry and decided that I am this body. This process of jnana must be given up. A process of ascending speculative knowledge, when that is completely given up. And when one leads one's life, complete life is led, devoid of these material desires. Sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam. That is, in describing and hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord. And this can be done how? Sthane sthita shrutigatam tanuvan manobhir. This can be done in whatever position one is. If one is a brahmachari, still it can be done. If a grahastha is there, still it can be done. It does not mean that one has to take sannyas. It does not mean that one has to go to the forest and lead a retired life. And this devotional service is rendered with the body, the words, and the mind. Tan vag manobhir. Ye prayaso. One who does this, then if a person leads their life like this, then what happens? That Supreme Lord Krishna, who is ordinarily not conquerable by any material means, becomes conquered. That is the meaning of this verse. Those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words and mind offer all respectful descriptions of your personality and activities, dedicating their lives to these narrations which are vibrated by your personality and by your pure devotees, certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within these three words. So if you look at this, there is another difference that this verse brings out between worship and bhaja. See, Lord Krishna is ajita, unconquerable by material means. A person who is worshipping ordinary persons, worshipping the devatas, and using his own abilities that he thinks are my abilities, using those abilities of the body, the words, and the mind. If a person is trying to understand Krishna without even recognizing that there is Supreme Lord and his form, and he simply says, let me try to understand this table, let me try to understand the atom. No doubt, that is the energy of Krishna, is not different from Krishna, but the person has no such understanding. He simply wants to study the atom based on his own hadron collider that he will construct for more than 2 miles long, and he will try to understand the atom like that, and he's trying to understand Krishna like that. But for such person, Krishna remains ajita. He cannot be conquered by such a person. But on the contrary, if a person is a pure devotee, and through his loving transcendental devotional service, through bhajate, he is approaching Krishna, then Krishna himself becomes conquered. And Sanatana Goswami explains the word tanuvan manobhir as Krishna's body becomes conquered because Krishna decides to be close to his devotees. He personally descends. He personally descends so that he can enjoy his pastimes face to face with devotees. Just see, we can conquer Krishna's body through the process of devotional service because Krishna becomes available face to face. Tanuvan manobhirvan. Through his words, he is constantly glorifying the glories of his pure devotees. And thus his words get won over. And then Krishna is always thinking of the welfare of his pure devotees. And he's always in loving ecstasy of his pure devotees. And therefore Krishna's mind is also conquered. And as devotees, from the point of view of devotee, a devotee is offering obeisances with his body, a devotee is chanting the glories of the holy name, and devotee is always thinking of serving the Lord. So from the devotee's point of view, also tanuvan manobhir, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying how these words, using tanuvan and manobhir, devotees offer obeisances, chant the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as the devotees who are preaching the message of the scriptures, when they engage their mind by feeling great reverence and pleasure while hearing the transcendental topics of the Lord, by these processes the Supreme Lord becomes won over. He becomes jita. From ajita, he becomes jita. This is another difference between worship and bhaja. So in spite of not having any significant, very deep scholarly knowledge, or even because after all the Supreme Lord's glories are unending, they are infinite. It is not possible for anybody to possibly know in very detail the glories of the Supreme Lord. We only know it because Supreme Lord himself is revealing them to us. But even if that somebody does not know very well, but is leading his life in this way, tanuvan manobhir, sthane sthita srutigatam tanuvan manobhir, in this way jivanti, sanmukharitam bhavadiya bharta. If somebody is able to render transcendental loving devotional service in this way, then even though a person may not have much transcendental knowledge about Krishna, still he can go back home, back to Godhead. But if a person simply wants to study the structure of an atom, he wants to know what is gravity, he wants to know what is magnetism by his own effort, that cannot last. Because Krishna is ajita, he will only end up falling down. So that's not possible. Now, let us look at this. This we already discussed. Yes. So, sthane sthita, what we just discussed, what if a person does not render loving devotional service? So, there is a verse for that which has been quoted, that if you want to remain fixed, or rather, if you want to render transcendental loving devotional service, then your current position has no relevance. It doesn't matter what your current position is, right? It doesn't matter. Whether you're a brahmachari or a grahastha or vanaprastha, you can still render transcendental loving devotional service. But what happens to a person who does not render? And that is a verse that has been quoted in today's purport. Ya esham purusham sakshad atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajanti avajananti sthanat bhrashta patanti adaha. So a person who is not rendering the loving transcendental loving devotional service, is he able to maintain his position? No. Sthanat bhrashta patanti adaha. He falls down from his position into a very hellish condition of life. So, ya esham purusham sakshat. See, this Supreme Personality of Godhead, Atma Prabhavam Ishwaram, He is the very cause of our existence. It is because of the Supreme Lord that we have come into existence. But that Supreme Lord, who is our cause, if we neglect to render transcendental loving devotional service, for any reason, it could be the na bhajanti reason. There are two reasons given here. One is na bhajanti, other is avajananti. Na bhajanti in this context means out of ignorance. Let us say somebody thinks that, oh, the highest form of yoga is mayurasana or shavasana or some meditation process. He doesn't know. He doesn't know that the highest is bhakti yoga. So he's just stuck in some asanas and he thinks that is the best form of yoga. Oh, that previous yoga was not very good. Let me go to BKS Iyengar yoga. Oh, that is not very good. Let me go to some hot yoga or something else. So because of not knowing, if somebody is not rendering devotional service, okay, that is one reason. But even if without knowing, if you out of ignorance, if somebody doesn't love, then also it will fall down. But worse than that is avajananti. Avajananti means disrespectful. Deliberately he is not doing. There is one verse in Bhagavad Gita, avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashtritaha mama bhuta maheshwaram. So the fools derived me, the translation of that, fools derived me when I appear in my original human form, transcendental human form. They do not know my higher nature and the power of everything, dominion over everything that be. So this fools deride me, and these are people who are deliberately disrespectful. They are denying the transcendental nature of the Lord. In spite of being informed about it, still they deny. They deliberately deny. They are miscreants. There are 4 kinds of such people that has been described also in Bhagavad Gita. Dushkriti Nam, like that. There are 4 kinds of varieties. But avajananti means deliberately being disrespectful. So if a person is neglecting to render transcendental loving devotional service for any reason, sthanat bhrashta patanti adaha. If any of the members of the 4 varnas and 4 ashramas fail to worship or intentionally disrespect the personality of Godhead, who is the source of his own creation, they will fall down from their position into a hellish state of life. So let us look at the second part, the Mount Everest of yoga. Now, recently I saw this. Some of you might have heard of this national park in United States called Denali National Park. I don't know if you've heard of it, Denali National Park. In the Denali National Park, there is one mountain. It's the tallest mountain in Denali National Park. It's called Mount Denali. That is the claim to fame of the Denali National Park. Primarily is because of very beautiful, picturesque mountains. And the highest among them is Mount Denali. And this is the highest mountain in all of America. The entire United States, this is the highest mountain peak. And just yesterday, there was a body of an Austrian mountain climber that was discovered here. So somebody has tried, from Austria he has come all the way to America into Mount Denali, and he has tried to climb that hill. And he has been successful in the past, but somehow this time he has failed and he passed away. Actually, like this, there are so many people who are coming from all over the world to climb these various mountain peaks and various places. And this is another example. Similarly, there is Mount Everest, of course, in India, in Nepal, border of Nepal and China. So Mount Denali is about 20,000 feet high, and Mount Everest, I think you all know, 30,000 feet high. So like this, there are so many climbers. This is a picture of an Australian climber who passed away while descending Mount Everest at the age of 54. And it is estimated that there are known cases of almost 300 people who have died while climbing Mount Everest. Of course, the actual number may be not known to anyone. But why do all these people come? Because they believe there is something higher. They're not satisfied with the challenges that they have. They want to know the highest part. So if all the different yoga system, because we have the inherent, the property within the spirit soul is we want to remember, we want to know what is that full knowledge, what is that perfect knowledge. Because originally we are Satchidananda, Satchit. Chit means full of cognizance. We had that perfect knowledge and we have forgotten and we are trying to remember it. So in the quest for knowledge, in the quest for Sat, power, in the quest for Ananda, we are constantly trying to discover Krishna, and we are thinking that this is a bigger challenge, that is a bigger challenge. But amongst all the different systems of knowledge, of all the different paths for understanding Krishna, if all these different paths were compared to a hill or a mountain, then the Himalayas are of course the biggest mountain range, and within Himalayas, it is, Prabhupada compares, Mount Everest is a summit, is a culmination. So just as Mount Everest is a culmination of all the challenges that a mountain climber can have, similarly an aspiring yogi, Bhakti Yoga is the highest culmination of all the different practices of yoga. And Prabhupada compares this different practices of yoga to staircases. Let us say you want to use a staircase and climb up. And Prabhupada compares them to the different processes of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Raja Yoga, Hatha Yoga, etc. Gradual progression. He says that Karma Yoga, when it is not mixed with fruitive desire for material sense gratification, when it's not mixed with that, that's the beginning of the yoga process. Then when that fructifies, and then there is a Jnana Yoga, and then it goes to Ashtanga Yoga, etc. But it's a very long and arduous process. And it may take, this is why some of the mountain climbers, they never reach the Mount Everest, the summit, the peak of Mount Everest, right? They're not able to go. Similarly, a aspiring yogi, if they go through this process, a progressive path of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, etc., they may never reach the ultimate path. Why? Because of allurements. In every one of the steps, in any one of the floors of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, etc., there are so many allurements. Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya dhuratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This maya is so strong. In every one of the floors, the first floor, you are thinking that you are going up to the top floor, but in the first floor, there are some video games, video parlor, and you want to play those video games. And then before you know it, you are just stuck there, you're not. Second floor, there is some cafeteria. Third floor, there is some lounge where you want to take down and take rest. So like this, a person may just stay there. So Prabhupada says the person who just stays at one level and is not going above beyond that is called by that name. So who is a Jnana Yogi? Who has climbed a couple of floors and he saw the Jnana Yogi floor and he's, oh, this Jnana Yogi is such a nice lounge. This chair is so comfortable. I will stay here. I'm not going further. So such a person is called Jnana Yogi. But someone who is fortunate enough to see that there's an elevator and take that shortcut to go up rapidly, just in a few seconds, 2 or 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, he can go all the way to the top. The elevator is not stopping anywhere. It's going all the way to the top. And that elevator process is called the Bhakti Yoga process. This is what Prabhupada is explaining. That Bhakti Yoga is the culmination of all the different yoga processes. A person who is taken to Bhakti Yoga, it should be understood that he has already crossed all the other yoga stages. Looking at the third part in the purport that Prabhupada is saying, becoming an ideal yogi. Who is the ideal yogi? Let us take a closer look at this. Prabhupada says, it is by great fortune. So it is not that everybody comes to the path of Bhakti Yoga. There are so many people who go to the second floor, look at the lounge of Jnana Yoga and get stuck there. Right? They are just not fortunate enough. But by great fortune, if someone comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of Bhakti Yoga, to become well situated according to Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shama Sundara, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud. So Prabhupada is describing the beautiful qualities of the Supreme Lord, and the ideal yogi is concentrating on that. Who is called Shama Sundara, beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus feet is as effulgent as a sun, whose dress is brilliant, jewels, and whose body is flower garlanded, illuminating all sides is gorgeous luster, which is called Brahma Jyoti. And of course, he incarnates Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavatar Makarod Bhuvanetsu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramapumanyu. Supreme Personality of Godhead. He descends like a human being. Krishna Swayam Paramapumanyu. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. As the son of Mother Yashoda. And then he is known as Krishna, Govinda or Vasudeva. He is a perfect child, husband, friend and the master. And he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. So these beautiful features of Shyamasundara, there are verse after verse after verse in Srimad Bhagavatam that describe the wonderful, beautiful features of Krishna. But because we already quoted the prayers of Lord Brahma, let me quote this first verse, the first prayer of Lord Brahma. Now midhyate abhra vapushe tadid ambaraya gunjavatamsa paripichala sanmukhaya vanyasraje kavalavetra vishana venu lakshma sriye mridupade pashupanga jaya. So Lord Brahma is saying, now midya te abhra vapuse tadid ambaraya. So now midya is, I'm offering my obeisances, I'm praising you, I'm glorifying you for your pleasure. Te abhra vapuse. So this is a beautiful, your body is a color of a dark rain-bearing cloud. Dark cloud. Abhra is a dark cloud, vapuse, your body. So your beautiful body that has got this bluish, dark bluish complexion. Tadid ambaraya. You have brilliant clothes, brilliant clothes. Look at the picture, if those who have seen Krishna's picture, of course, photograph, a painting, yellow, pitambara vastra, beautiful, radiant, brilliant colors. Gunjavatamsa. Gunja is beautiful earrings made of berries. Gunja is, avatamsa is the earrings. So the ears are decorated with beautiful berries in the shape of earrings. Paripicha lasan mukhaya. That is, the paripicha is the beautiful feathers. Your face is decorated with feathers. And how is the face? Lasan mukhaya. It's effulgent, beautiful face. So the face is so beautiful, and it is more beautified by the wonderful peacock feathers that are decorating your face. Vanyasrije. Your body is decorated with beautiful forest flowers. Vanyasrije. Kavala. Kavala is a morsel of food. You can see that in Krishna. It is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are able to see, you can see the photo of Krishna is holding a morsel of food like that. It is described in Bhagavatam like this, that he's holding this his morsel of food when he's sharing the food with his friends in the forest. He eats with his hand like that, and his mother, she packs curd rice for him in a cloth, in a piece of cloth, and that is tied onto the end of a stick. And so he's normally carrying that stick like that. And when there's a time for enjoying some nourishment, he takes it out from that and eats with hand like that. Such a beautiful sight, like an ordinary child, like a village cowherd boy, right? He's just eating some curd rice with his hand. So Lord Brahma is glorifying that wonderful sight. Kevala, Vetra Vishana Venu. So there is a stick, and then there is a Vishana, that is the buffalo horn, and Venu is a flute. Lakshma Shriye Mridupade, and you're looking so beautiful, standing like that in a slightly bent form. Beautiful sight to behold. Lord Brahma said, my dear Lord, you are the only worshipable Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore I offer my humble obeisances and prayers just to please you. O son of the king of the cowherds, your transcendental body is dark blue like a new cloud, and your garment is brilliant like lightning, and your beauty of your face is enhanced by your gunja earrings and the peacock feather on your forehead, wearing garlands of various forest flowers and leaves, and equipped with a herding stick, a buffalo horn, and flute. You stand beautifully with a morsel of food in your hand. So an ideal yogi, an aspiring yogi, would try to concentrate upon this Shama Sundara form of the Lord, always in the heart. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti. Always. Yam Shama Sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. So this Shama Sundara form, always within the heart. And Premanjana, anointed with the eyes, anointment of love. A person is looking at this beautiful form in the heart. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti. So the Shama Sundara form, an ideal yogi is always meditating upon this. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, and with this we will close, this stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by Bhakti Yoga, as is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Yasya deve parabhaktir tatha yatha deve tatha gurau tasyaite kathitahi artha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all imports of all Vedic literature automatically revealed. So you see, the the most important part that Prabhupada stresses in his lecture on this verse is implicit faith. This faith or Shraddha is the beginning of devotional service, Adau Shraddha. And particularly if we want to advance in devotional service, one must have implicit faith in both the Lord and in the spiritual master. A person who renders devotional service to the Lord and the spiritual master with implicit faith, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So, this is the process, and I wish I could elaborate a little bit more, especially on the part about the faith, because it's a very important word that has been used in the verse itself. Yoginam api sarvesha madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. So this shraddha is extremely important, and devotional service begins with shraddha, adau shraddha, tata sadhu sangha, tata bhajana kriya, tata anartha nivritti syat. So this process of devotional service has been described in this verse. The process of bhakti yoga has been described. It has been explained how bhakti yoga is the culmination, is the highest among all the different yoga processes. And this completes the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And in our next class, we will start with the first verse of the 7th chapter. So I'll just stop here and see if you have any questions or comments.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Prabhu, what does mat katena, abiding in me, is referring here?
Abiding in Krishna, we have seen how in the previous verses also, when leading up to this verse, it has been said that a perfect yogi sees Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna. He sees Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna. That is abiding in me. So every activity is abiding in Krishna. Like for example, you have, so perfect yogi, the topmost yogi, bhakti yogi, is understood to have crossed all the other forms of yoga. Means all the transcendental knowledge is revealed within his heart. Therefore, he sees Krishna not only is in the Shyamasundara form, but he can see that the entire creation around him is the energy of the Lord. And he sees the all-pervading nature of Krishna as Paramatma in every atom, in every living being. And therefore, every interaction with others, in every activity that he performs, he sees that as an activity that is related to Krishna. So therefore, in that sense, he is abiding in Krishna. Any other questions? Comments? If there are no other questions, we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki.